John!
What?
Red 7!
I don't know what Red 7 means.
Hot route!
I don't. What is hot route?
Will you just go stand on the other side, please?
Down!
Come on.
Ready, down, set, hut, 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 hut!
Hit me! Booyah! That's what we call a sack lunch. Nom, 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 nom.
It's time for the Soonerscoop.com postgame show presented by Eskridge Lexus in Oklahoma City. Eskridge Lexus is the official travel partner of Soonerscoop.com podcasts. Now, here's your road crew, Carey, Eddie, and Bob, wrapping up all the action and reaction from this week's game.
Alrighty, welcome back. It is the post-game podcast, the Eskridge Lexus post-game podcast, and the lineup is a little different. It always has been since Zoom started. Bob is always working and not having a chance to talk to us as much on the post-game podcast. Eddie is having some technical difficulties and some life difficulties, I think, and he is on the road. So we welcome. I'm kind of glad we're doing this. It's the boss pod, the boss pod. We haven't had one of these in a very long time. Josh McQuistion, our recruiting publisher, is with us, and I always kind of feel bad that you're not more involved, because like that intro is made for Josh McQuistion. Like I can just see you taking touch football way too seriously and talking about hot routes when nobody else knows what you're talking about.
There is some absolute truth in that. I'm the asshole movie quote guy that's like constantly like, oh, that's still funny. I'm like, that movie's 15 years old. That's not funny anymore. But I never realize it until I've said it, and so I've kind of shot my shot.
All right, so another OU football game. They win it. Wait a minute. Hold on. Just a sec. They didn't win. What is happening? OU was beaten today by Baylor. And the first thing that we have to get into is Josh's obsession today during the game with people who would have the gall, the unmitigated gall, the temerity, as Stephen A. Smith would say, to question that maybe bringing Spencer Rattler into the game wasn't such a bad thing. And my point was this. It was not like, okay, Caleb Williams isn't playing well, so let's try something. It was strictly Caleb Williams does not look right. Like you were at home watching the game like I was. You saw his hand get stepped on. I guess it's because I'm a former catcher and I have had my hand stepped on and had to go to the emergency room, get stitches and all that stuff. Like, it's not when someone puts a metal, spike into your hand like that, that thing swells up, and you can't operate the same. So like, it wasn't so much like, well, screw this Caleb Williams guy. Let's try Rattler again. It was simply a case of, okay, so if he is not 100%, do they maybe have a better chance trying Rattler a little bit? And you have to admit that the ball looked better coming out of his hand than it did Caleb Williams. It just that, like you mentioned, I know what your deal was, is Spencer Rattler needs a clean pocket, and he didn't have one.
That's the thing, and it's never been for me that Spencer Rattler can't play or like. Don't get me wrong, he has his deficiencies, but the kind of game that this was, where Baylor was getting pressure with their front four, Spencer Rattler's not going to help you in that game. That's not the game he's going to win you. If Caleb Williams is sitting in a clean pocket and he's missing all kinds of open receivers, okay, fine, like I can do that with you. But that's not what was going on. He was moving around and having to throw off platform, doing all the things that we know he can do. And you're right, he wasn't himself today. I'm not saying he was. But I think that last drive was pretty indicative. There was one guy that could actually move the ball. Now, he couldn't move it like we're used to seeing Oklahoma's offense move it. I totally grant that. But the other side of it is, and like I got into it with a few people, it's not just about today. Like, if you're not, I mean, and we don't know the conversations Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams had, but if you're going to make that move, you have to make it abundantly clear to Caleb, this is not about performance. This has got nothing to do with that. And he may have done so.
I mean, you don't
But
have to
you
do that,
don't
though.
want
It's
your
a
young
hand
quarterback
injury. I
thinking.
mean, all you have to say is, look, Caleb, I don't think your hand is good. Like, you're not yourself. Like, we're going to try something different. That's all you have to say. You're making it into such a big deal that it doesn't need to be.
But at the same, like, you ran him out there in the second half. You clearly thought he was okay. And so you can't rewrite it and then be like, well, it's not performance, now it's the hand.
You have to
well,
like,
nothing
give him a
changed.
chance, though. You have to say, yeah, I know you're not 100%. I mean, like, the sideline interview was just like, he was like, oh, Caleb's a tough kid. We don't think it'll be an issue. You don't really know. You're just trying to be positive and just trying to, see if the guy goes out there and can play through it. I mean, I wasn't a great baseball player. I mean, I hate making this analogy, but, like, again, I was a catcher, and after I would catch one of our knuckleballers, like, I would have so many jammed fingers because they got bent back because I would be digging so many balls out of the dirt that I had to tape, like, 3 of my fingers together. But, like, the next day, whenever that would happen, I would go, like, 5 for 5. Like, even though one of my hands barely worked. It was one of those things. It's like some people, if they get hurt, I mean, let's face it, football players are playing hurt all the time. And some guys, that kind of focuses them a little bit. And maybe they didn't know. I mean, Caleb's never been through anything like that with them. Maybe it would have made him focus. You got to give him that shot coming out of halftime. I just don't have an issue with it.
The other problem with it was, and okay, let's say I can buy that side of the argument. Then why the hell has Caleb Williams come back in the game?
Because Spencer Rattler.
If it's not performance related.
Because you weren't going anywhere with Spencer Rattler. I mean, it became clear after 2 series, like, the offensive line is not blocking well. And let's pause for a moment here.
How are we the only ones that could see that, though?
But pause here for a moment. God damn, that offensive line is just not what it needs to be. I mean, after all,
Nope.
I mean, you've got to really start questioning what Oklahoma is doing on the offensive line right now, whether it's recruiting, development, whatever. It's not working, Josh. It's not good.
Guys, and you look from a recruiting perspective, this is one of the more talented offensive lines Bill Bedenbaugh's had at Oklahoma, more highly regarded, however you want to term that. And they're not good. There is some element that continues from last year where you look around college football, there's not a lot of great offensive line play. There's just not. There's a lot of teams that are doing a nice job masking it or kind of being unique to cover up the fact that they're not very good up front. But it's a problem. Look at
the start of the game,
now
Josh.
I will say,
look at the start of the game, and they come out there and they just get blown the hell up. Like, you're like, it's like they once again, I mean, that's not even to get the argument about, whether this team is ready to play week in and week out, but they literally were overwhelmed when they first took the field as an offensive line. Overwhelmed.
Carey, that leads a huge question. I don't know how broad to take this. Does the staff, does Lincoln Riley, do they have any feel for this team? Because to take the ball in that situation, you better be damn confident you can at least go get a couple first downs. We can flip the field here.
But when they started running the ball, then they stopped running the ball. I mean, there was a point where they had 65 yards of rushing offense and 65 yards of passing offense, and I think they had 66 to end the first half. They just never ran the ball. And Kennedy Brooks things were starting to open up for him, and they just quit. And that's a staple of Lincoln Riley's play calling. It really is. We can say that now.
It is. I mean, I think we all have to acknowledge that is something his run choices are hard to explain sometimes. Like, sometimes he's in a rhythm and it all clicks. And then there's just a turd game like today where, like you said, I really was impressed that they didn't get impatient and they kind of kept trying to run. And then all of a sudden, hey, the counter's starting to work a little bit. It's opening some things up. And then they just stopped. And it never returned. And you were like, and I'd get it if Baylor was moving the ball and you had some concerns about staying in the game. But no, that's not what was happening. It was 10-7 late in the third quarter.
Yeah. And I mean, there was so much, QB run, and maybe that was with the hand thing and stuff. But I mean, the wide receivers until late. I mean, the pass, that was the most ridiculous thing is when Caleb Williams came back in the game, he threw it deep to Jaden Hazelwood, and look what happened. Like, where was that the rest of the game? It was just non-existent. Mm-hmm. And I mean, just the throws that were early, like throwing behind Drake Stoops and throwing over Austin Stogner's head, and like it was just Caleb Williams. I think the first real road game, because let's face it, the Texas game. Remember, after that game, even I think Sarkisian even said like it seemed like we were an OU side of the field the entire game. Like he never really had to face that much. What's the word I'm looking for? He didn't have to face
atmosphere, noise.
Well, he didn't have to face. Yeah, he did have to face a lot of adversity. Playing in Texas' side of the field. I just felt like today. I mean, he looked like a guy that really let the moment kind of get to him for the first time.
I agree. I mean, like there were times he just looked out of sorts, and I don't have a good reason for it or anything that can explain what it was that happened.
Except that your offensive line didn't set a good tone for you early. I mean, that didn't help him.
They didn't. I don't know. Like I said, there was just nothing that made sense. Like they'd kind of get the run game going that, okay, we're going to bomb it deep. Well, why? Like there was a drive there where even Klatt and Gus Johnson, and I know, like, again, you were at home with me listening, where they're talking about, like, does Oklahoma just want to establish the run here? Like, do they want to just try that? And I think Kennedy Brooks had just ripped off like a 7-yard run on first down, and you're like, yes, that's genius, do that. And no, they refused to do it, and it looked like it was there. It was almost like, like we talk about quarterbacks and pre-snap. Like, Oklahoma came into the game as like, well, we can throw the ball all day against Baylor, but we're not going to be able to run the ball. So let's just, and it was like, oh, no, we never adapted to, maybe that's not right. Maybe there's more here on the ground than we thought there was.
By the way, you know what is weird is I don't want to see the comments on the Crimson Corner about this. Yes, I know this wasn't Caleb Williams' first road game, but the first one was at Kansas. Come on. And you could say that was a struggle there too. I mean, Caleb Williams has not played on the road, and one of those places is a non-environment in Kansas. There are more OU fans there than there are Kansas fans. So I don't know. How do you win Bedlam? I mean, how does he if he doesn't play well on the road? Bedlam is going to be the craziest environment that he'll have seen.
I just don't know how a week off, you're getting important players back. And God, Carey, it's the same crap we've talked about. The defense played some good football today. For large portions of that game, they played well. All of a sudden, the offense can't do anything. Like, it's they cannot operate
no complementary
anything together.
Football. Yeah.
No, it's one or the other, and I don't know.
Tech is the only
There's
time
no
that
reason
we've seen
for it. There's nothing that makes sense. Tech
is the only game all year in the second half of Texas. That's the only 2 times we've seen complimentary football from this team.
And there, like, again, there's no reason. Like, there's no reason that you're like, oh yeah, that's why. None of it makes sense. Like, they're not connected to each other. There's nothing happening here. The defense kind of fell apart in the second half, I think, because they were just on the damn field so long.
Yeah, I mean, it was, and it's like, God, it's like you hate seeing guys leave the field on defense like Nick Benito and Isaiah Thomas, because, and then it's like they moved Isaiah Thomas inside and throughout the second half because they just weren't happy with their interior guys. And that to me still continues to be baffling. Like, I don't get it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's befuddling. And I mean, like, the defense today is just like Delarian Turner-Yell comes out and he's making plays left and right early. And you're like, wow, the defense is a lot better with Delarian Turner-Yell. But then he kind of has some brain farts here and there. And, Nick Benito,
with some tackles.
Kind of disappears at times. But then other times, I thought for a moment David Agwebu might be starting to feel himself a little bit and start maybe coming into his own. But then I see him get dragged like for 4 yards. Like, why is David Agwebu getting dragged by a running back for 4 yards? That shouldn't happen.
this feels like the game that we've all thought would come all year, where Oklahoma and this idea that like, oh, it'll all work out, we'll be fine, somebody's going to step up and make a play, and nobody did. Nobody could. And it finally came back and bit them in the ass. They played a team that was good enough to punish them for all their stupidity. I mean, the Perry-on-Winfrey personal foul, good God, like that can't happen. That just so stupid. Then you've got the Justin Broyles with the horse collar on the sideline. What do you do? Like, these are seniors. Like, you know, and I get a horse collar when it's all you can grab. Justin Broyles is like chest to chest with the guy.
Yeah.
That wasn't necessary.
I didn't think there was any way it could have been a horse collar because he literally was just ushering him out of bounds.
Yes. When I saw it, I was like, oh, that's a bull call. And then you see the replay and you're like, nope, that's dead on. That's obvious.
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure Eddie would have lots to scream about if he were here. I guess I'm just reserved to the fact that this was a shit day. And nothing surprised. I mean, like, you know, before the game starts, you're thinking all the things like that run through your head. Like, well, what if the offensive line can't, you know, open up any holes for the running game? What if Caleb Williams throws interceptions? And like everything I thought that could go wrong that would lead to a loss went wrong. I mean, it just did. And like you said, the one thing that you can't really blame or you know say sucks is the defense because they weren't that bad today, but the offense was god awful. I mean, it was just terrible.
Yep. You know, and that's the thing. People will try to lump the defense. And don't get me wrong, the defense wasn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination.
The Key Lawrence touchdown. I mean, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Man? You're one-on-one with the guy, and you lost him. And
and the one guy you can't lose. Like, the one guy in Baylor's receiver room that you're like, nope, that guy's got to be a kind of – Tyquan Thornton's a really good player. And – there was a like that was the matchup OU wanted. If there was any corner they want on Thornton, it's Key Lawrence because he's got the size to deal with him. And like, okay, you get shook, but then he just stopped. Who does that?
Yeah, he
like,
had a rough
turn and
day.
run. Like it was just a weird. I mean, and that was the whole thing. Like the whole team. You talked about Caleb. Like was the situation a little much for him? There were a lot of guys that look like that. I mean, veteran guys that look like they were overwhelmed out there. And maybe that's not what it was, but just guys making plays which you're like, you know better than that. You don't do that. It was foolishness.
Sorry, Eddie is trying to connect.
No. Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah, I mean, it's a team that wasn't ready for that moment. I mean, they just weren't ready for the moment. And it's I know it's frustrating for the coaches, and it's got to be for the fans as well, because I mean you're talking about that's a lot of road noise. Eddie Radosevich joins us. Kind of beater
with
you
his
guys
windows
driving?
down with the windows down and a cigarette hanging out of his mouth.
Might suggest some sound absorption in that car.
Hold on one sec. I'm gonna put my. Maybe my headphones will work a little bit better if I put those on.
Okay.
All right.
That would probably be good, yeah. So, no, but, I mean, that's got to be the frustrating thing, like coaches or fans, because you see so many guys that are out there playing hard and playing well. Like, I obviously I watch Isaiah and what he's doing on just about every play. Yeah, I think you're better, Eddie.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
that seems a lot better.
You see him kind of just flying all over the field, and he's making plays that go away from him. And you're like, okay, Isaiah is really, he's trying to get some more viewers on the Isaiah Thomas show right now. And then you see guys that, like Perry that have the stupid penalty, or you see guys that just flat out miss a tackle, or you see like Delarian Turner-Yell just diving at a guy instead of just running up to him and tackling him. It's just like, It's insane.
And I will say, I thought Isaiah Thomas had a hell of a game in the first half. He played really well in the first half. Kind of, like you said, they kind of moved him around.
They moved him inside. I mean, it's just like...
And it didn't look the same.
Well, I mean, look, they were getting killed on that Bohannon option. And I mean, it was just... They just kept running that play over and over and over again, and there was no reason to stop because that just killed them all day.
Now the dude we talked about the defense. Brian Asamoah. If that dude played like that all season, he'd be a Butkus finalist. That was a monster of a game. He was everywhere for the first 3 quarters.
Yeah, he was.
And then, of course, was out of the game on the biggest drive of the day.
And the thing is, like, when they score that touchdown, like, Benito's not on the field. Isaiah Thomas is not on the field. They got, like, Ethan Downs. And Marcus Stripling is on the field when they score the short touchdown when Bohannon runs it in. And that was, like, first and second and goal. It's like, what is going on? Like, how are these personnel decisions being made?
Eddie, we were talking a little bit about just kind of the atmosphere, the environment. What was that like for you? I mean, like what was it like? It didn't seem overly rowdy or anything. It didn't seem crazy.
It was just really weird. It was kind of dead almost. I thought it was one of those games that was just very weird because you never felt like it was. I don't know. To a certain extent, you never felt like OU was really locked into the game, and then you look up and it's 7-0, and then they drive right back down the field. Like, I don't know. Until they broke off the 75-yarder. Bob and I were talking about this on the way home. By the way, my mission is get him home safely. If I was by myself, I might just drive off the side of the road. It was very awkward. I think that's probably the best way to say it. It was a very awkward day. It was kind of warm. The fans were like into it, but I don't think that they necessarily really believed in Baylor until they had a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter. It was just, I don't get it. I really don't. I don't get it. I know that you guys have, I'm sure, already talked about this, but the way that thing came kind of undone, and knowing that they came are coming out of a bye week, it very concerning, I think, overall, just the way that whole thing unfolded. There was never really a belief in Oklahoma. It felt like that they were going to be able to find a way today. And it's kind of weird because it's like the 17 games prior to that, they had always found a way. And especially in the fourth quarter. And it just wasn't able to come together. And then the quarterback thing was just awkward. I don't know. It was startling enough to where you go, where's this season gonna go? Like, what direction is this thing gonna go?
Eddie,
I really don't know.
We were talking about this earlier. It is strange if you look back at the 2 true road games that Caleb Williams has played, and even before he hurt his hand, he was not particularly accurate. And it's not like he's played. It's not like he's played in just deafening environments. I mean, but Kansas and Baylor, and he's just looked very shaky compared to what he's looked like at home. And with half a stadium full of fans at OU Texas, it's concerning.
Yeah, I mean, get ready in 2 weeks because that place is going to be a madhouse, knowing that they can basically end Oklahoma season. And shit, I don't know if they get through next week with Iowa State, even though they get beat today down in Lubbock. So he didn't play well. I thought he floated a couple balls. I thought one of the biggest plays of the game was when he missed Stogner down in, I guess it would be the north end zone. Stogner's wide open. He just floated it over him. It's like he didn't drive the ball. And it just offensively, it was not good. I mean, I kept looking over at Nate and Josh Calloway, and it's like, what is going on? I thought the play calling was kind of miserable at times. The imagination of the offense was just kind of weird. It's like, I don't know. Like the first series of the game, how terrible was that?
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier.
Flat out f***ing awful.
Well, and it was awful because the offensive line just came out there and just got blown up. God. They weren't ready to play.
I didn't realize that until I got up to the press box after the game and I'm looking at the game book. It's like, I did not realize that they'd lost 15 yards on the first series of the game.
Well, I mean, I think it was third and 20. I mean, there was no play there where they're like, well, okay, they had the one bad one, and then 2 were okay. Like, they were just all awful. Like, OU was just like, and they just didn't look ready to play. It didn't. With Eddie, I agree. They looked disinterested. But there was a part of me that until Baylor breaks that 75-yard run, where I'm like, they're going to find a way to win this game. We've seen it a bunch of times. They're going to do this.
You know what the sad part about all this? And I was telling Bob, we were talking about before I called in while we were getting on the road out of Waco. It's like at the end of the third quarter, I don't know if they showed it on television, but Riley calls like a team huddle. The entire team comes together before they punt that ball away. And that was like a moment of like, okay, you're like, as poorly as things have gone, you're in this game. Somehow, some way, you're in this game. You can find a way. And it felt like it kind of gave me that like Texas vibe. It was like, you're going to get a good punt here. They did. They got the penalty to back them up. And then the defense just comes out and, Benito misses the assignment, and the rest is history. I mean, after that, it was like, okay, it's over.
Yeah, that 75-yard run was just, it
was backbreaking. It was crippling.
Well, and the thing about
it was going to get the ball in such a good position, like it could have been fine, and it just wasn't.
Sure.
Here's the thing that's crazy about today is that you did exactly what you wanted. You put him in the exact same the exact position that you wanted Bohannon to be in, where he was ineffective throwing the football, and you still could not stop him.
The crazy thing is defensively, they didn't play like. I mean, there were bad parts, believe me, but like there was a lot of really good. It's kind of like you said, Josh. It's like Brian Asamoah played pretty well, all things considered. But then, like the three plays that really stuck out to me were there was I don't remember what down it was, but it was down inside the red zone. They basically backed the guy up, and he crosses midfield, crosses direction, and still picks up. I think it was a first down because then it was first and goal from the 10 or something, and all of a sudden it's 2nd and 5. Missed tackles. The third and then the 2 third and longs that they pick up, one with a draw and then the other one with a screenplay almost. It's like, I just don't get it. I don't get how they can look so bad at times. It's literally like they don't practice.
I thought repeatedly today they looked slow. Because there were several times where they cut it back across the field. And granted, that's part of that wide zone Baylor runs. Like, I get that they block in a manner where they can reverse. But that's not what this was. There were several that were just, I'm totally stopped here. I'm going to run back and go back the other way. And you're watching them run away from, like, Woody Washington and those kind of – and you're like, man, if you're going to hashtag speed D, you can't have guys running – 25 yards back in the other direction outrunning you to get there. Like that can't happen. And
I will say, Josh, your guy did look fast running down was that Abner Smith or whatever on the 75?
Abram Smith. Yeah. Shane Witter making a play. Now got some help. Pat Fields tripped him up just enough to slow him down. I think Witter caught him. Now I do want to say quick update here. Bob, Eddie, if you guys want to flip around on I-35 and get headed to Austin, it's 7-0 Kansas in Austin right now.
So they're trying to do their best Sanford impression. If Florida doesn't change the locks at the football facility, and they actually let Dan Mullen in on Monday morning, everybody in that department should be fired.
Eddie, are you disregarding a win? I mean, that's just insulting to the game.
Have a press conference where he doesn't embarrass himself. He's incapable of not embarrassing himself.
Somebody said on Twitter, I saw that he was trying to get ratioed in real life, and I think that's exactly what he's trying to do.
It's you're just like, how? I mean, don't get me wrong. There's times when I'm like, okay, a coach has to say that. No, in the situation he's in, he has to come in and say, this is not acceptable. What happened out there is not okay. Yeah, we're glad we got a win. We have to be better than that. And, I get that that's not going to make everybody happy, but you're also not going to just piss on everybody that is insanely furious with you at the moment.
Have you guys covered any of the way that the game ended as far as...
No, we were waiting to talk to you because you were on the field, so you got to see the madness. And I think that maybe you kind of were close enough to hear Lincoln Riley freaking out.
More than Riley. I mean, I'm not going to.
I mean, the fact that Joe C.
but
got involved was.
I mean, Joe C's out on the field.
Yeah,
he's out on the field. Him and Zach Selman were both on the field.
Right.
Listen, I know OU's not happy about the way that was handled. I think both sides handled it very poorly. But I mean, what's OU bitching about? Don't get in that.
Dave Aranda made a smart play. He made a smart play. You can get as mad as you want about that. That's just
Lincoln's
good football.
Pissed off
that was
because of the
smart.
way the game ended. I mean, he's pissed off because of the way the game was. He's not like, I get it, but at the same time, I thought that they kind of looked like idiots being so mad about it. Like, I don't know. Like, I guess I say this and then something does happen and we're all looking back on it and wondering why, but a Baylor student isn't going to go cold clock Perrion Winfrey after the game. It's just not going to happen.
That's more likely. Perrion Winfrey's going to cold cock a Baylor student.
Yeah, I think so. I think they're in much more danger from him.
I'd love to see that. It'd show that he cares a little bit.
No, but I mean, the whole thing, it was just a circus. I mean, how do you not tell Dave Aranda, like, look, we can let the time stay on the clock, but you're going to get a 15-yard penalty because of this. And that'll pretty much nullify your field goal attempt. But obviously, they're not going to do that, especially with OU and Texas and what they've done. I mean, we asked ourselves, like, and we've asked Lincoln Riley this, like, do you worry about, how things might go on the road now that you've already declared that you're leaving the conference? And, what else was he supposed to say? He was like, I don't think anything will change. You can't help but wonder if that didn't have something to do with the way things played out today in regards to giving them that field goal.
I don't think that they, thought about that at the end of the game, although there were some pretty strong SEC chants from the Baylor fans at the end of the game. I don't know if it came across on television, but I mean, I get it. Like everybody is just pissed off about that situation, but yeah, it's like the best way to avoid that is don't be down by 11 with a minute left in the fourth quarter. I mean, my God, it just could have been a very preventable situation, I guess. But I have never seen the OU administration that angry about another opponent, the way that the words fucking bullshit were used many a times as there was people walking off the field. I don't think that that's the last we've heard of that. But then again, it's like, what's Baylor supposed to do? Like the student section isn't gonna not run on the field.
Yeah. No, we've all been on fields when that's happened. There's no way you're stopping that from happening. You can fine people as much as you want. You're not stopping. I mean, I remember Bob Berry Jr. and I standing there laughing as cops were arresting tech students jumping out of the stands, literally looking up at them and saying, if you jump down here, I am going to arrest you. And then you just see the kid go, YOLO! and jump down on the field and get tackled by the cop.
And the Baylor kids were sober. That's the crazy part about it.
Yeah. Like I said, the thing with the whole ending, and somebody brought this up to me. Guys, did Lincoln Riley take Tuesday? I know everybody thinks it was the LSU interview. Was he actually putting in a good word for Dave Aranda at LSU? Was that is he trying to get Dave Aranda as far away as humanly possible? Because that dude is clearly
Dave
a problem.
Aranda just made himself a lot of money at USC today.
Tell you what, that Tuesday thing becomes a lot bigger than it was at about 7 a.m. this morning at 7 o'clock tonight after that type of performance, especially the way that they played from top to bottom. I mean, it literally looked like they were unprepared.
That's all you guys are going to be talking about on Monday. That's all. That's literally all anybody's going to want to talk about.
Eddie, you know this. You know who's going to ask that question, right?
I don't know. We'll see if I'm still allowed to attend stuff.
Well, I may not let you. You know that Hoover is going to ask that question.
I'm just telling you right now, Carey, there's a guardrail about 15 feet to my left right now.
Is that your way of apologizing? Is that your way of apologizing? Is that how you apologize?
No, I was going to tell you later.
Anyway, no,
I don't
but
want to
I
miss
mean,
your mom on the pod.
No, I mean,
it's
people.
a big deal now.
People,
how can they look so unprepared?
But here's the thing: missing one day on a bye week is that shouldn't be a big deal. Like, it's more than one day. Like, the failure is that you had a whole bye week. Like, and you were still that bad, especially to start the game.
Yeah. I really like, I don't know. I wish I had an answer for the way that thing unfolded, but there was just no, like, they were fighting, but they weren't fighting. I don't know. It's hard to kind of explain, like, even the sidelines, and you guys have been to these types of games before. It just felt like everybody was a little bit checked out. And I don't know how, like, I'll just say it. Like, it's a total fan take, but it did feel like it was like the team knew that Lincoln Riley was going to LSU in a way. Like, it did kind of feel like that just because of the way that thing unfolded.
Like, maybe he's actually the Raiders coach already and we don't know it.
Yeah, like, it just, it was, I don't know. It was very, very weird the way that thing unfolded, and just kind of like they were lifeless, and then there was never really an opportunity for them to find themselves. I don't know. And the way that unfolded, it was like, holy shit. Like, I mean, right now they might go up to Stillwater and get beat by a good solid 17, 20 points.
Well, here's the thing. How many points can they score in Stillwater? That's the question. Any? Which
is crazy because I felt like they were finding some stuff on the ground there in the second and third quarters, and then you look up and it's like 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. I don't know. It like the two interceptions from Caleb Williams were just so inexplicable. Like, there would have been guys benched at Hefner Middle School for throwing it up the way that he did.
Guys, we are breaking OU fans' hearts to have this conversation. Just for a little bit of levity, it is 14-0 Kansas at the end of the first quarter in Austin right now.
That's the only thing that could make tonight better for anybody.
The wheels may be coming off that train.
I don't think, like, even shitting on Texas doesn't make Oklahoma fans feel better anymore. Like, that's where this thing is at. It's like, all right, well, they still are terrible. That doesn't, and that's the thing about, like, the fan base now. And I got a lot of this today before my phone died. It's like, they're 9-1, and they might as well be 5-4 because winning the Big 12, like, putting this thing back together, does nothing for nobody. This season is now a failure.
I'm not trying to be all sunshine and rainbows here, but you beat Iowa State, you beat Oklahoma State, and then you beat Oklahoma State in the Big 12 championship game. I mean, they almost made the. Do I have to remind everybody they almost made the college football playoff last year with 2 losses?
I still see ways for this to be okay. Don't get me wrong. I don't have any illusions about what this team is. But I don't have any illusions about what Oklahoma State is.
They have to get a lot better. And Lincoln Riley's got to be better in a lot of ways as the offensive coordinator, whether it's preparation, game planning, play calling. There's a lot of ways he could be better. But, guys, I mean, it was a bye week, and the offense wasn't prepared, but the defense was definitely prepared to play this game today.
They played well enough to win. There's no doubt about that.
Eddie, we talked about a little bit.
It just was so bad.
Yeah, you need to settle this because Carey and I are on very different ends of the benching Caleb Williams spectrum.
I don't think.
What did you make of that? What did you see from the
ends.
field? I
there
guess
are no ends. There's just if the guy is hurt, you might as well try something else. That's my end. That's where that's where I.
But
start
if he's hurt, you
and
don't
stop.
run him back out there.
Yeah, I don't think he got benched because he was hurt. I think he got benched because he was being terrible.
Well, I'll say this,
And he wasn't good. I'm not arguing that he was. He was not good.
but when he's thrown his second interception, and you wonder how much the hand is really hurting him, like that's where I think you just have to try something because at that point it didn't look like the offense was ever going to score again that day.
Yeah.
And the reason that Rattler got benched at Texas was the same for the exact same reasons. His second turnover and the offense wasn't going anywhere and they were down big.
Well, but that's the difference. Texas was looking like they might lap Oklahoma. Like, I kind of got that. Like, and don't get me wrong, I was kind of the opinion that it should happen already. Like, I'll own that. But at the same time, it was 10-7. Defense is playing fine. Like, it's not like you're out of the game. Like, and don't get me wrong, you can't keep turning the ball over. I certainly understand it. But, guys, we talked about this for weeks. This was going to happen sooner or later. Caleb Williams was not going to walk on water his entire freshman year. There was going to be a tough moment, and it feels like the moment got tough, and they were like, okay, let's go back to Spencer Rattler. That messes with the kid. Like, it just feels like a poor thing.
How was Spencer Rattler ever considered a dual threat quarterback?
I don't know.
I'm not trying to be mean to him. He just he gets under pressure. He cannot get out of any.
No.
And with that offensive line as bad as they are, like he's a sitting duck back there. You thought OSU got after Jarrett Dagey? OSU's gonna have 13 sacks against OU. They might have more sacks than completions.
It's mostly because of where he played and the competition level he played, where you just and the fact that he didn't have to prove anything most of his senior year.
Mike Woods had a step on his guy.
Didn't really get an opportunity
on that first ball.
No, I mean that was an egregious missed pass interference. That Mike Woods throw, his very first pass.
Oh, was it?
Oh, it was awful. Like the guy literally.
I thought there were two bad ones.
The guy on the Mike Woods one, both on Mike Woods, but the Spencer Rattler, his first throw, the guy just clamped onto Mike Woods' arm the entire time and pulled it down to where he couldn't even use it, and they just let it go. It was unbelievable. They didn't call that.
Baylor's got
it was very bad. There's no
secondary
doubt
that OU would love to have.
Yeah. And that's the thing that's the toughest because that was the area that everybody was like, well, if Oklahoma can't do anything else, they can attack Baylor in the secondary.
But you know what?
And
Baylor would have loved to have Joshua Eaton and Latrell McCutcheon too, though.
Well, if Latrell's dad has anything to say about it, that might...
He might be in the transfer portal soon. I think we just lost Eddie.
Oh.
You can't really go too far down that highway and not lose a signal at some point.
Yeah. That's and you wouldn't think so on a major thoroughfare. Yeah, we'll go thoroughfare like 35, but that's always a hellhole. Maybe it's because there's so many damn people.
He's back. Eddie, we got you
for a second.
Yeah, we got you. We just
that's just part of losing football games, though. Like I know that there's going to be a lot of people that make a big deal about. Is that Latrell's dad that went off on Twitter and stuff? I don't know. I wouldn't overreact too much to that. A dad's going to be pissed that his son's not playing, but yeah, he might have a little bit of a point. What did you guys think of Woody's return?
I thought he was solid. He knocked the shit out of some dude at one point. I can't remember who that was.
Thought he was real steady. Like it wasn't great. It wasn't an amazing performance, but he was very steady. He did what he needed to do. And for first game back,
the only the two glaring busts that I saw today. One was DJ Graham, which Bohannon overthrew his guy, and the other was Key Lawrence in the end zone, just losing his guy. That he was.
I will say, like DJ did lose his guy, but that was a hell of a play in the third quarter, knocking the ball out of that guy's hands.
That would have been, if they had come back, that would have been the play of the game. But then they pick up a first down on like a 18-yard run the very next play.
Yeah, but that was the same possession, though, that they ended up getting the fumble, right?
Oh, was that when Asamoah knocked it out and recovered? Okay.
So it kind of cancels it out.
Balanced
but
out,
you're
yeah.
right. It's like, that's still the third down. It's like 3rd and 13 or 3rd and 15. They pick up 23 yards because it was Isaiah Thomas had the sack on the triple reverse option or whatever. It was right after the pick. And
guys,
then they
if
turned
you
it
would have
right
told
back
me Bohannon would be 12 of 21 for 117 yards and a pick, I think OU wins this by 3 touchdowns.
Like 35-17 or something.
Yes.
What the rushing?
I think that I was going to say this a little. They ended up 296. Now, obviously, you take one or two big runs out of it, it's a lot more manageable. But I mean, that's all part of this. I mean, it's not like Baylor couldn't run. But I thought that they start. I mean, again, Abram Smith's not a burner, and the fact that it took OU that much effort to catch him tells me they were damn tired by the time that play happened. And that was a first down, if I'm not mistaken. That was the first play of the series. So,
right, yeah.
So they had come off. So I think they were just wearing down as that went on. What I was going to say, I think from a coverage perspective, this may have been the best game I saw OU play all year. I thought the coverage is pretty good. They've gotten their hands in some passing lanes. They're, like you said, the DJ Graham breakup. Now that they had a couple busts, it wasn't perfect by any stretch, but the stuff over the middle wasn't just wide open and just killing OU. Uh-oh.
We got another submerged Eddie.
Oh no.
Yeah, well, if we lose them, that's fine. We're probably good. I don't know how much more we could bitch about this particular game. I think we've hit pretty much every point that we could bitch about.
I think do we have enough time for all the stock ups we want to do, or are we going to be okay?
Yeah, I'm just worried about sights and sounds this week. Like, is it going to be a 3-minute spectacular?
It's going to be Brian. It's just the Brian Asamoah highlight reel, just him walking around hitting people.
Okay, we got you back, Eddie. I think. Eddie?
Yeah, we're
Eddie.
good.
Okay.
All right.
You're good.
Sorry, that was the funniest sounding, I don't have a good connection sound I've ever heard in my entire life.
You went super digital there.
Oh, does it not coming through yet?
You're fine now. You're coming through. Yeah. No, I was saying before you got back on here, I'm really concerned about your sights and sounds this week, that it's only going to be like 3 minutes long.
I mean, I had a good shooting day.
Is it just going to be like Josie and Lincoln, just like at the end of the game? That's going to be the whole reel.
I mean, it might be.
I would be interested in watching that.
I would watch that. Yeah, that's true.
I mean, you can't really see it because we couldn't get like that close because it was down on the other end of the field. But it was just, the whole thing was weird. Like, I knew what was going on, but at the same time, it was just like, I mean, just get it over with. That's basically how I felt. Like, all the players were already back in the locker room. It was just really weird, and I feel terrible for Caleb Kelly, man.
Yes, that is something we got to talk about. Do we know what it was? Like, do we know?
They suspect that it's a torn ACL.
I think that's. I think Bob even put it out. He had a source tell him the ACL. It's awful, man.
Yeah, I'd actually tweeted that out. I talked to somebody, and I was like, so do they even need to do an MRI, or is he an expert, or did they even need to look at it, or did he just self-diagnose since he's had it so many times? Like, yep, it's ACL again. I think he 100% knew as soon as it happened. Just the way that he reacted. I think they absolutely knew. And Brian Meade came over. It was almost a really sad scene, kind of. That's just, it's just incredible. It's awful. Incredible that he's gotten this many years and gotten back because of COVID and all that, but that he's had these 3 injuries now. Yeah. That have been season ending. He had a nice play in the red zone, like on a run play early in the game. I mean,
I don't know. I guess I'd say something terrible here, but it's Clayton Smith's time now. Step up.
For a guy that has had all the injuries, he has had some nice moments. Like the Auburn Sugar Bowl. He'll always have that great game. He'll have the strip against Texas. Like, he's had some truly huge moments.
The TCU score.
Yeah.
But
yep.
I
West
think
Virginia.
I know West Virginia is
sack.
one that he's told me is his favorite play going into this year of his career.
I mean, a lot of guys that have those injury problems never got the chance to do some of the stuff he's done. But obviously, I'm sure he'll always, kind of have a what-if feeling just because
I think
he did flash great stuff.
If you could do it all over again if you're Caleb Kelly, then I probably come in and I spend a year bulking up and I try and become a defensive end because he just never was a linebacker. He was just a tweener.
Yep.
It's just surprising. I don't know. Is that not surprising a little bit? I thought he was going to be one of the next great linebackers at Oklahoma.
I did too. And I didn't. He was always a weird fit. Now, if he had come in as a freshman into Grinch's scheme, he makes all the sense in the world. Now, he's just not the guy he used to be. And so I think people will be like, oh, you see him this year. This year, he's not what he once was. But in Mike's scheme, and it's no fault of Mike's, like he was always an awkward fit. So that was always going to be a little bit tricky. But like I said, it's just anybody that knows the kid, like it's hard not to be heartbroken for him because he deserved a good moment, a good way to go out, and that's just not the way it's supposed to end.
Let me ask you this: if you are Alex Grinch, you're losing Isaiah Thomas, Perrin Winfrey, obviously, and Nick Benito. Do you start looking at maybe putting Agwebu back at a rush-in spot? Because
I would. As
much as he's had some flashes, I haven't noticed anything particular out of Reggie Grimes lately. Marcus Stripling, don't really see it there with him. I don't know that there's a difference maker there next year.
Yeah.
Stripling feels like a picture that gives me a lot of confidence in what's coming back in 2022.
I mean, Clayton Smith, we all think is a dude.
Yep.
But
but he can't get on the field. I'm about as low on just from a development standpoint of a bunch of people right now that you could possibly get. And of course, it's a little bit of an overreaction, but it's like holy shit! Like, what is from top to bottom? What is going on?
Yeah, I thought, we can talk about Caleb Williams, and it wasn't there. I thought there was a lack of many guys stepping up and trying to make plays on offense all day. People can talk about the Marvin Mims pass interference on the deep ball. Marvin Mims made no real effort to come back to that ball. Like, he just thought he was going to get the PI and go. Like, no, man, go make the play. And I think the world of Marvin Mims, but I think that he has some of that.
He could have forced more of the contact if he would have come back. And if that ball, because like I said, I think I said this in the war room, if that ball had been even more underthrown, it would have been an obvious PI. But he could have made it look more obvious by fighting his way back to the football. Yeah,
like I said, and I don't get me wrong, like Caleb gets all the credit when it goes right. He gets the blame today. I mean, he was the primary issue, along with the offensive line not giving him much help. But there were some plays there to be made that I didn't feel like guys made. It didn't feel like OU ever developed an answer to Baylor dropping 7 and bringing 4. Like, can we not work something intermediate here? Like they did that little dump off to Eric Gray where he about scored a touchdown.
Yeah.
And you thought, well, where's more of that? That looked great. Like that, Eric Gray in space against a linebacker. That's a battle you'll win.
Yeah, people have you ever seen I remember watching a 60 Minutes thing one time about face blindness. Have you ever seen much on face blindness?
No.
So it's like when you can never remember a person by looking at their face.
Oh, wow.
So, like, you'll meet someone and they'll say hello. Like, I kind of get it because, especially when I was doing more recruiting stuff, because you meet so many people. I'm not real good at putting names with faces. I have to meet you several times before it really sinks in. But, like, these are people that like, work around people day after day, and they cannot remember their names by looking at their face. Because they don't see features, they only see like sharp shapes or something. But I think Lincoln Riley has running back blindness. Like anything that has to do with running backs, it's just a blind spot for him. And if that's throwing to them out of the backfield, that's part of his running back blindness. Because you're right, that Eric Gray pass out of the back has been one of the most effective plays that they've had on offense all year.
Yep.
And they rarely use it.
Just get him in space. Get him the ball in space. However you may.
In a game like that, how does Marcus Major not get a look or two? Let's just see if he can do something between the tackles. Like
because he fumbled especially when 2 minutes left in the game against Tech.
It's amazing how
but I can't really say that when you didn't give enough carries to the guy who was running the ball well. Like they just weren't interested in running anything with anybody.
You're right.
It's just frustrating,
well, and
it's an ongoing
get into the
thing.
Situation when Rattler comes in the game, you can't do any RPO stuff because he's no threat to keep the ball.
Because he can't.
And
make
it doesn't
the right
help that you're
choice
down by
with
10 or 17 or whatever the hell.
Again, like and people will take it as like me defending Williams and bagging on Rattler. I thought it was an unfair spot to put Rattler in. Like it wasn't. He wasn't going to succeed in that. Like there was no chance. He had nobody to block for him. Like Eddie said, he's not a threat in the RPO because he just doesn't have a feel for it. And I mean, Baylor was doing a nice job up front. Like I don't know what you thought Spencer Rattler was going to bring to that scenario.
Someone that could actually accurately throw the football.
I mean, guys, we can talk about the pass interference. Spencer Rattler leads Mike Woods. That's a touchdown, not a would-be pass interference.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah,
there were guys. I thought.
I know that's nitpicking. That's tough.
But how many perfect deep balls has Caleb Williams thrown this year? Most of his passes are overthrown.
No, you're not. I mean, you're not wrong. But if that's what we're saying, if that's what Rattler brings to the table, he missed.
But he also gave a wide receiver a chance to make a play on the ball, and Caleb Williams wasn't doing that.
He did. That you're there. I mean, there's like I get it, but
what's interesting?
I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze.
He did that in his very first pass, and what did we criticize him about so much before he got benched? Is that he would never throw that 50-50 ball to anyone.
Yeah.
That's fair.
That's a good point. He came in with an IDGAF for sure. It's like I'm just gonna wing it.
Yeah, he wasn't worried about his completion
percentage.
percentage.
Mask off. He had a mask on the entire time. I mean, I told you guys in the war room, but there was rumors circulating that he had the flu all week.
Dude, that stuff. Georgia had a bunch of players with the flu. Like I was sick this week, and it was like a stomach bug. It was like I thought it was food poisoning, but
I think that's why Deshaun White and Clayton Smith weren't there today.
Yeah, I say. I mean, I went to that wedding last weekend, and I haven't been around anybody because I wanted to make sure like I don't get COVID and then start spreading it because that's where it always happens is at weddings. But yeah, I mean that thing's going around big time. I mean, I'm not so sure that's Lincoln Riley didn't have that this week.
My guess, and kind of talking to Tiffany and some medical people, is that last year there was no real flu because everybody's wearing damn masks. There was no way for it to really spread. So this year you're getting a whole lot of people that normally, like it would, kind of like we talked about with COVID, like it would have been a little more spread out. Well, there was no immunity built to it. So a lot of people that wouldn't normally catch it are catching it right now.
Sure.
I mean, that's just, it's a half-baked theory, but that's what it makes some sense on, from people much smarter than me, I guess.
All right.
They gotta figure something out because offensively and here's the other thing. I don't have the numbers in front of me. Gary Naming tweeted it out, but Lincoln Riley might just straight up have a Dave Aranda problem.
Yes.
And he's not getting away from that anytime soon. He can't move the ball against that guy.
No, we talked about this earlier. Dave Aranda made USC money today. He just got a big raise from his offer that USC's trying to make. I mean, somebody's going to come.
Timeouts, a family gave Baylor Athletics $100 million.
Holy shit! Wow, the Baptist man.
Straight up. I don't know if it was Koresh money, but it was definitely $100 million.
No, there's definitely. Let me let this slide. There is definitely.
I was trying to get an interview with him the entire second half. I never saw him.
There is definitely going to be. I mean, Baylor will not let him go easily. Like they're going to throw like the $8 or $9 million out there to try and keep him.
Yeah, 100%. They don't want to have to go through what they've been going through over the last 2 years. Trammell talked about it or wrote about it this week. Just as far as it's kind of impressive that Baylor has been able to keep their head above water over the last 2 hires since the Art Riles stuff. With Matt Rule is a great hire, and Dave Aranda, as it turns out, he's a pretty damn good hire as well.
I mean, at some point, I guess. How long has Mack Rhodes been there? Did he make both of those hires? Is that right?
No. I mean, Mack Rhodes got knocked out with the Briles stuff.
Is he not? I thought he was still the guy. Am I crazy?
Who am I thinking? Or am I thinking of a different?
No, you're. Let's see. There was Starr, and who was the Starr was the president, and who was the AD? It doesn't matter.
Oh, it's the guy over at Liberty now.
Yes. Damn, what's his name?
I forget that scumbag's name.
Yep. But yeah, I mean Ian McCaw.
Oh yeah, Ian McCaw. That's who it was.
Yep. But yeah, I think Mack Rhodes apparently he came in 2016. So would that have been Rule? Would he have inherited Rule then? Is that right? I'm trying to remember when Rule got there. But either way, he hired Aranda, had Rule, like guys doing something right from an athletic director standpoint. But yeah, Aranda, it's hard not to be impressed. Like I was super impressed and I know it made him mad the end of the game decision. He was just so cool-headed. He was like, yeah, we needed to do that. That helps us. I don't think a lot of coaches would have done that. From I don't want to offend another coach. Man, who gives a shit? It's like I heard something about what was it in the post game, the sports compassion or sportsmanship or something like that.
Code of sportsmanship, I believe it was.
No.
It doesn't go a long way to say that the program's not soft when Riley's sitting there talking about he wouldn't have kicked the field goal and something about whatever you just said about sportsmanship. Like my eyes rolled out of the back of my head.
You wouldn't do something that helped your team? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, well, we all know everybody's using analytics out the ass these days, so.
Yeah.
He was more mad about the game than he was about the actual situation. I just don't buy that they were that upset.
Yeah. And that's fair. Like it is 15-0 Ole Miss in Oxford right now. A&M can do nothing offensively.
Damn it. That's my lock of the week.
Last I saw, Ole Miss had like 330 yards offense. A&M had like 80.
I'll admit I was fully bought in on A&M.
I don't get me wrong. I thought this was going to be an interesting game. We talked about it last week,
we talked about it on the pod.
Switched.
If A&M could score enough points, because you knew Ole Miss would score. I thought they'd drop 330 in the first half on A&M.
Yeah. All right. I tell you what, let's get final thoughts. Anybody want to throw it out there before we get out of here? I'm sorry if it wasn't like the super angry pod that I know everybody wanted, or the super drunk pod that everybody wanted.
That's what I was just going to get into, Carey. It's like I don't necessarily think I'm mad as much as I am just kind of left like scratching my head wondering how you can come out of a bye week and just be that unprepared from top to bottom, from head coach down to the last player on the field. Oh, and then the other thing, Gabe Brkic was awful today.
I know.
Yep.
misses 2 kicks, and I thought the biggest mess up that he had wasn't the 2 field goals.
Kicking it out of
I can live
bounds.
with that.
Yeah.
Kicking out of bounds out of halftime? What are you doing?
Is he somewhat indicative of where that whole team was? Because we've never seen Gabe Brkic that out of sorts.
Yeah.
Like, is he
He's still the best kicker in the history of OU football. He just had a bad game.
No, he did. He
say
did, but
that.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, does that tell you something about where the whole team was if he was that far off?
And I think that's kind of my biggest takeaway from today is how? How does that happen? You go into a game with 3 regular season games left with basically everything in front of you. How does that happen? They're college kids, whatever, but I think that there is a lot of, I don't know about finger pointing, but there are a lot of guys that just don't have answers down there right now. Alex Grinch doesn't have any answers for why they can't motivate this group. Lincoln Riley doesn't have any answers for basically anything offensively right now and why they can't seemingly move the football. I don't know. It's just big picture. It kind of makes you wonder, what's going on down there really, behind the scenes, but we'll see.
I'm going to tell you this. I almost think I should just, after this year is over, I should just write, not a book, but maybe do a journal about what it's been like, kind of getting insight with Isaiah Thomas about the team. Because here's the thing, everything is always so secretive, and it's not like he's told me any information about the dynamics of this or that, but it's just things I pick up on. But I think we always make this so much more complicated about, it's the coach's jobs to get these guys ready. And how are they not able to motivate this team to play? I don't think it's a whole lot different than any other job that, if you're out there listening, any company that you're working for or job that you have, there's other people that you work with. And some of the people you work with are really good at what they do. The best of the best. And there are other people that you work with that are just morale cancers, and they just don't give a shit, and they're just there taking up space and getting their paycheck and going home. I think football teams are a lot like that. You have guys that are really good. They could not work harder to be good at the job that they do. And then you have a lot of guys that, hey, if they get to play, maybe that'll be good. And, as long as I don't screw up, and I keep my head down, at least I'll still have this job next week. That dynamic is the same on a football team as it is at anybody's job.
Isn't that the CEO's responsibility?
It's really not. The CEO doesn't know all the time. That's the thing. People think, well, Lincoln Riley should individually know how to motivate every one of his players. You got to leave some of that to the position coaches.
Yeah.
And maybe the position coaches don't want to, they don't have enough time with their CEO to tell them about Ronnie, who is frequently late for work. The CEO doesn't care about that. He just cares about, is your team producing? Are they getting it done? Are sales figures good? It's tough to put it all. I know that's what we look at as sports, but you think of all the stuff that Lincoln Riley does, 105, 115 people to manage, just players, then your staff, your recruiting staff, your athletic director, your coaches' shows, your press conferences.
This company is bleeding money. We need somebody to get fired. And it has been bleeding money for the last couple quarters.
Carey, that kind of leads to my 2 thoughts. First one is one that we talk about all the time. Okay, now you've got that loss. Maybe now you'll start to see some of the shakeups. Like you talked about, do they start looking at some guys? They start making some, giving some opportunities. Look at safety. Okay, do we start letting Keyshawn Lawrence have some run there? Maybe Billy Bowman goes back to nickel. Do some different stuff. Whether it's again, there's a million variables. It could be anything.
Nickel is one thing they really have to look at. But if I'm starting anywhere, I'm starting on the offensive line.
Yes, no, I think all is open. Like whatever. I mean, because like you just said, the CEO's got to come in and talk to all of his lieutenants and say, okay,
how do we?
What
fix
are your
this?
problems?
Yeah.
Yes, how do we fix the problems in your areas? And go from it that way.
And you know what he says? He says, I don't need to know the individual problems. I need you to fix it. So then that position coach has to go to his position group and say, you guys are not getting it done. We look bad. So changes have to be made. And that's when you fire Jerry or Ron or whoever I was talking about earlier.
Yep. Everybody's spots are on the table.
Conversations have to be had in the 10th game of the year.
Guys, and that's the other thing. Like, guys, it feels like pardon the guy in this conversation with a kid, it feels like damn Scooby-Doo. Like we pulled the mask away and it's Mr. We knew who this team was. We friggin' knew it. We told ourselves we didn't know. Maybe they were going to be different. We know who they are. It's Mr. Jones at the old haunted amusement park. Like, they are a team that is just going to we'll talk about this team for years to come. This is going to be one of those teams that we're like, well, why weren't they better? Look at all these guys in the NFL. Look at all this. There's a lot of good talent here, and it just can't put it together. And I don't know if it's like what Carey's talking about where your best players aren't motivated. I don't know what it is, but something is fundamentally wrong with this team. Like, just to have that piss poor of a performance when you know what's in front of you, what's possible, and to have a week off, you're probably the healthiest you've been in a month, and that's what you put on the field.
There's, to me, like, you talk about that, like NFL players everywhere, teams that maximize who they are. I think that's part of the problem too with this team is that they've switched quarterbacks, and I think Caleb Williams is a guy that can be like a Baker eventually as a leader that brings everybody together. They clearly don't have the guy that can bring everybody together, the leadership on that side of the ball, and especially not on the offensive line because no one's listening to them the way they're playing.
I think that they could in time, but again, it's hard for somebody like Caleb Williams to do it. He's a freshman, and especially on a night like tonight where he didn't play well. Like, everybody would look at him and say, "You're the reason we're having to have this conversation."
Yeah.
Guys, it's almost an indictment of the team that Caleb Williams is able to be the leader at the level he is.
No, it is.
100%.
There should be
100%.
There should be seniors that are like, look, man, we respect you. You're going to be the guy. Now's not your time.
But look who those seniors are, and I hate picking on them, but that message can't come from Justin Broyles or Tony or Patrick Fields. It just can't.
But that's what we get told all the time, is that that's what those guys are. And you don't follow guys like that, guys. We all played sports. Like, your best players are going to dictate the mood of your team, the attitude of your team.
Well, and I mean, look at this.
Patrick Fields could run for Congress one day. It still doesn't mean he should be a leader on the field.
Yes.
What was it? Okay, so this is what's interesting to me. Like, okay, so how many okays did I say right there?
Don't steal my shit, man.
Your best players need to be your best leaders. There's only two team captains I can think of that match that description. And it might be
like this team?
Yes, and it might be just one since Spencer Rattler's not even a starter yet. He's a captain, so you might have to take one away. Mm-hmm. But it's Jeremiah Hall, who isn't really on the field all the time, and Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah.
Everybody else is kind of sketchy, either in the play making department or just the overall position, like Rattler.
The other three starters, one got replaced, another people want to get replaced, and the other one is in his 8th year of college. Like, come on.
And he's done.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And that's the thing that's like, I love all those guys.
Yep.
But it's not the makeup of a great leadership group.
No, it's
guys,
not.
And it kind of makes sense now why things are so up and down with this team from game to game. But I will say this. The strangest thing about today is that OU did not blow like a 28-point lead and lose. Because this is the first time in a long time that they just got beat and they were down the majority of the game and they couldn't get anything going offensively. Like, we've never seen that.
I thought about that during the third quarter, Carey. It was one of, and that's why I don't think that I'm like necessarily mad. It's like, how can you be mad about a game that they just got beat? Like, they got beat in every phase of the game. And sometimes you just tip your hat and say, like, yeah, they just, what angers you is how the process of them getting beat, not the fact that they actually got their ass whooped.
Yeah. I think we got out some good aggression there in the end. I think we finally had our mad pod.
Guys, you just look down this senior list of players. Other than Isaiah and Mike Woods, a transfer in.
And the example, too, is Nick is one of your best players, but he's not a vocal guy. I think even Jamar Cain was asked about that this week, and he kind of laughed. He was like, oh, no, he's not going to speak up about anything. He's very quiet.
And he's the one that has the bust on the 75-yard run. I mean,
it is what it is. Yeah.
And it is like you look toward next year. Like we talk about the talent for next year. Who's that guy next year? I mean, Caleb obviously will take on a bigger role, but like it can't be just him. Like, where are the Orlando Browns? Those guys that are going to check people, and make sure everybody's on the right path. Like, I mean, they may be there, but I don't see them. Who's that?
I think Rain can be that type of guy but he has to take care of himself first and foremost. You know what I mean? It's like you hear some of the stuff off the field and like maybe being late to meetings. That's why he didn't start last week against Tech. It's like
the personal foul he had today on the extra point, or was it?
How do you have a personal foul on an extra point?
Because he hit a guy late, like way after the kick had gone through the uprights.
Like, come on, man.
And I mean, that was so indicative of today, guys. Like, there was just guys that I know are not stupid football players doing stupid shit.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it? I mean, we saw Matt Diamond get kicked out of a game on that field, and that they still won, like in a crucial key moment.
Work it out there, Eddie.
Excuse me.
Anyway, and by the way, here's my other gripe about the offensive line, and I've been meaning to bring this up, and now it's like since this is the airing of grievances, like how is it if everything's going okay with the offensive line, how is it that Creed Humphrey seemed to have such a down year last year, and he's been great other than a few snaps here and there, like one of the bright spots on the offensive line for the Kansas City Chiefs this year.
Again, I don't think much of PFF's work in college, but their NFL stuff's not bad. And they've got him as the best center in football. How does that happen? And I'm with you. Like, there are, and I'm a huge Bill Bedenbaugh fan. I've been a believer in what he brought to the table since he got there. But man, you just can't keep running out units like this. Yeah,
something's wrong.
Something's just not right. I agree.
It's weird. All right, guys. Eddie, we'll let you go. We'll get out of here. We'll end it before you hit another rough patch. But, Sooners lose. We don't say that often, but it happened this week. They move on. Iowa State coming to town next week. And you know what? Brock Purdy actually played pretty well tonight. Led him back, and then Texas Tech just hit a miracle 62-yard field goal. Actually, it wasn't really a miracle because that could have been like a 68-yard field goal. That guy nailed it. Garibay, I think.
Tech radio call is pretty good if you haven't had a chance to listen to it yet.
I can imagine Level just loses his mind.
It's the play-by-play guy that like does a couple of shrieks and yells. It's definitely 10 out of 10.
All right. Well, that's going to do it. We will be back again next week after the Iowa State game where hopefully everyone's in a better mood and starting to feel like the future could actually happen and we don't all just need to fall off of a cliff. So, like you said, I'm not trying to pump any sunshine here, but Okay, I'm going to shut up. I'm not even going to finish that sentence. Just drown your sorrows in some beer or whiskey and go to work on Monday, and hopefully you're not that hungover. That's my wish for all you listeners.
Get Bob home safe, Eddie.
Yes, don't drive off into the guardrail.
We won't.
All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks to Eskridge Lexus for always sponsoring the post-game podcast. And we'll see you guys back here next week for another edition of the Eskridge Lexus post-game podcast from Soonerscoop.com.